YouTube. Today I'll be reacting to When the Amazon Was a Mega Lake by the Extinct Zoo. So let's check it out. I guess this was like in the prehistoric time era.
Nature is beyond amazing and all around us. We got deserts, forests, rivers, mountains, oceans. The list is...
I remember I wanted to watch a video about the Mount Everest. I was watching some videos last night on TikTok about the Mount Everest and about the bodies in there, and the stories were so sad.
They're endless. And while every habitat is breathtaking in its own way, there are those particular
There is whales in the Antarctica? I didn't know that.
places that seem time and time again to captivate people more than normal. And there's perhaps no better example of this than the Amazon rainforest and river, sometimes collectively known as the Amazon Basin.
Is it Rio Negro y Rio Solimões that they're going to talk about?
This area is made up of extensive lush rainforests, swamps, and thousands of waterways, providing an abundance of resources, which allows for the existence of some of Earth's most unbelievable life.
Cute! It's Suning. You call it Suning, this monkey.
And its crazy nature has led to it often being touted
Or Soning. I think it's Soning.
as the last frontier on land. And this is further reflected by the fact that a poll with over 600 million votes listed it as one of the 7 new wonders of Earth. Impressive, and proof that nearly everyone knows about it. But that said, not all, or dare I say most, realize just how giant it truly is. The rainforest, for starters, is by far the largest on the planet, outcompeting the second place, Congo, by a magnitude of 3. While the Amazon River is so expansive and powerful that it moves water about 6 times faster than what's seen in any other river on Earth. In fact, you could combine the Nile, Mississippi, Congo, Ganges, Thames, and Yangtze River and still not beat the amount of water the Amazon is moving. And due to its sheer...
Oh my god, is is the currency that you guys call? Like that movement that happens in rivers? Is it that so strong in the Amazon? I didn't know that.
size, the Amazon in some ways seems eternal, and it's hard to imagine it ever being different. But yet, at one time, it was unrecognizable compared to now, and not just in how the actual landscape looked, but also in the sense of what called it home. As if you think the Amazon is scary today, then boy oh boy, do I have news for you. Because once upon a time...
Well, people always say like there is places in the Amazon that is not explored, but I don't think so. I think we have seen every single place already on the Amazon.
Make its present-day self look somewhat like a petting zoo. And there is no scarier time in the Amazon's history when it was not a rainforest, but rather a super mega lake, now known as Lake Pebas. This bonkers realm is believed to have started forming long ago, about 21 million years, give or take, during the Aquatanian. This was the oldest age of the Miocene epoch, and was generally defined as a dry and cool period. But clearly the Amazon didn't get the memo, as it remained relatively warm and wet by most people's standards. The climate had a lot to say in how things operate in these parts. Yet, what was having a far larger impact on the area was the wax and waning of the lands, with tectonic activity causing the Andean mountains to rise up. And their increased elevation eventually got to a point where the flow of water...
Yeah, because I was going to say that Brazil is on top of a whole, like, in only one plate, you know? We aren't divided in a bunch of plates.
was heavily impacted, essentially creating a huge bowl in the west, in which water would get trapped. And thus the region rapidly began to flood and fill up to the brim with water, giving us the Pebas systems. Now, I did say this area was a super lake, yet the nuanced answer is that we aren't too sure as to what exactly this region really
Alberto!
looked like. We know it was wet, surely. However, the question is, was it one massive lake, multiple lake systems, or a giant marsh, or something in between? And that's where it gets hazy, with one of the more accepted hypotheses being that it was a mega wetland, with loads of varying environments. Whatever the case though, you would have found a lot of water here, as the Lake Pebas system at its peak was larger than present-day Japan, and in certain areas could achieve depths of 50 meters or 150 feet.
Oh my god!
So for people with thalassophobia, this is rather unwelcome news, and this certainly wasn't helped by the fact that what lived in these waters consisted of what I would tentatively dub non-human friendly life. And honestly, gave the Western Interior Seaway, i.e. the Earth's deadliest sea, a run for its money. Because if I had to
I never heard of that.
choose across either one, I'm not exactly sure which one I would choose, which is saying something. Additionally, like the Western Interior Seaway, the Pebas mega wetland had phases to it, some of which were more chill and others more nope.
Oh, But the Amazon is up here. How it came like down here too? That's crazy.
And there is a clear time when it reached the peak nopeness, which was the Middle Miocene. This was a very important part in Earth's natural history as a whole. Yet, it was really an event in the midst of this age that mattered the most, the MMCO, or the Middle Miocene Climatic Optimum, an interval wherein temperatures worldwide rose, with the average temp being about 3 to 4 degrees Celsius warmer than the present, which for perspective would be kind of like going from Portugal to Syria. And based on present measurements, Lake Pebas would have been comparable to the top 5 current hottest countries. So you definitely want to bring some refreshment and a lot of sunscreen. This heat wave is believed to have...
Well, it's not really that hot nowadays. Especially the Amazon. I don't think it is really that hot in there nowadays. Like other states in Brazil, they are way hotter for sure.
Stemmed from an elevation in atmospheric carbon dioxide, and might have also fed the vegetation of Pebas, resulting in giant trees, oversized marshes, thick mangroves, the lot, while also leading to the largest size for Lake
It looks so pretty.
Pebas in terms of maximum reach and water levels. And unsurprisingly, this allowed for an abundance of life to seep in, and cold-blooded animals in particular took a heavy liking to the new heat, which helped not only their diversity levels, but also their sizes. And though the Cenozoic as a whole is often called the age of mammals, Lake Pebas was definitely a place ruled by reptiles. Yet, despite each group of scalies reaping the rewards, so to speak, it was one group in particular that took over. Good old crocs. And if you thought Australia, the Everglades, or the Nile has a
Oh my god, that was huge!
croc problem, think again, as the Pebas put them to absolute shame, with formations linked to the wetland, indicating a higher diversity seen in crocodilians than even birds. In other words, imagine a place where seeing a bird is more of a rarity than seeing a croc.
Oh my god.
Which I don't know about you guys, but to me, it's probably not the kind of location I'd want to visit. And due to the high number of crocodilians
I don't really know if there's this much of crocodiles nowadays. I don't think there is, really.
living in Pebas, we see that there were many types, with niche partitioning being routinely observed. Along with heavy diversity and niche partitioning, of course comes great differences of size. And while a few remained within what we would consider the normal limits, a handful evolved into supersized giants. And this included the king of the mega wetland, and what was the largest caiman and possibly the biggest crocodilian to ever live, the Purosaurus. There are no words that capture just how monstrous this behemoth was, but I will try. The first reports of its existence comes from 1892, when skull material was located in the Purus region by a team of paleontologists. And the sizes of these skull pieces were nigh unbelievable, and they instantly knew this was something different, so to speak. In subsequent discoveries
Man, how have I never heard about this stuff?
of more material only confirmed this, as what it unveiled was a supercroc that was built like a tank and had proportions off the charts, with the skulls alone measuring 4.7 feet or about 1.5 meters, and being almost comically robust at that, taking on a rather box.
Oh my god! Only the mouth? The head? Is this only the mouth? Although the eyes are like on top of the mouth too. But man, it was so big!
Like shape. And so clearly from this powerful head alone, the Purosaurus was top dog in Pebas, and a vicious predator at that. Although its postcranial size, the body size, is something that not everyone agrees on, as postcranial bones have been rather elusive. But most studies have found that at the very least, they would have measured 9.2 meters or 30 feet long, and weighed over 6 tons, which already greatly exceeds the largest reptiles.
One? Oh my god, that's so much! And almost 10 meters. I'm shocked. Although this was kind of like in the dinosaur age. Was it? I don't know, I'm kind of lost.
Today, and puts it on par with literal killer whales. But I have to warn you, things only get crazier after this, as these are the more quote-unquote conservative estimates. Other studies have reported theoretical maximums from 33 to 42, or even 52 feet, or 12.5, 10, and 15.8 meters, respectively. Additionally, at these bigger sizes, the weight also balloons, and it's possible that the largest adults weighed between 8.4 and 12.
They couldn't really discover which one was an adult and a juvenile.
6 tons, which at the latter weight, we are talking about a crocodilian heavier than even a minke whale. If true, it would also make the Purosaurus the heaviest crocodilian ever. And though the accuracy of these estimates are kind of hard to assess, separate studies do suggest a high likelihood that the Purosaurus was indeed heavier than the most famous megacrocs, like the Deinosuchus or Sarcosuchus. And given its titanic broad jaws, it would have required a massive neck to support it, not to mention a muscular, robust body as well. And given the absurd nature of its jaws, you know this guy had one mean bite, with models implying a bite force of up to 69,000 newtons, which sounds a lot, and it is, with very few animals having achieved anything even close to this. Not even.
Oh my god, how big was this river too? Like, to have a bunch of these crocodiles in there.
The infamous T-Rex. And at this bite force, it'd essentially be like having a cargo truck dropped on top of you. But instead of tires crushing you, the damage was delivered by dozens of 2-inch or 5-centimeter long teeth that were curved, covered in 2 cutting edges, and thickly conical, allowing for tremendous bites straight onto bone without harming these teeth at all. And due to their shape and design of the skull, it's clear that Purosaurus was a hunter of large vertebrates, who utilized puncturing and holding bites to debilitate and capture prey. And these stats alone make Purosaurus one deadly killer. But things only get worse for the rest of Pebas, as paleontologists reckon that despite its
it looks so funny, like the front wheel.
massive weight, this guy retained the classical finishing move seen in many crocodilians.
Oh my god, his beams?
In other words, the death roll. This brutal move is designed to not only subdue, but literally dismember prey. And with modern crocodiles, has been
I think it's so cute when they do that.
known to rip animals as large as buffaloes to pieces. So I don't want to imagine just how messy a death roll from the Purosaurus would have been.
Oh.
And thus naturally, this reptile was clearly the apex predator, and nothing else we know from the region would be safe from a fully grown one. Which is why it's also so unfair that Purosaurus had impeccable defenses as well, being covered in thick scales and osteoderms far greater than the armor seen in any of its descendants, and keeping it well protected from any animals or from its environment.
Oh my god, which animal would be the predator of this crocodile? Was there even one?
As the waters of Pebas likely were riddled with fallen trees and various debris that could be pointy. And ultimately, the Purosaurus found extreme success with this build, as fossil remains show that it was not concentrated to specific environments within Pebas, but instead lived throughout the entire thing, inhabiting rivers, floodplains, and lake environments.
Oh my god, that's what I'm saying. Like, how big was it? Oh my god, it was being like huge.
And so, if you saw water run, and you were in said water, well, it was nice knowing you. But while Purosaurus was to the Pebas Formation what the T-Rex was to Hell Creek, it was by no means the sole crocodilian, nor was it even the only giant one. And a testament to this is that the Pebas was also home to possibly the largest gavialid ever. This family is currently only represented by the gharials and false gharials.
Yeah, they look so funny. With their mouth open.
But in ancient Pebas, there was a whole lot more, including Griposuchus. Now, I'd much rather swim into this guy than a Purosaurus, but to be honest, I'd prefer neither, as this guy was still a giant within its own right. Thus far, 4 species of this genus has been discovered, and the largest by a good margin is the Griposuchus croizati, a species described in 2009 who seems to have been stuck in the northern tip of Pebas, possibly frequenting both freshwater and coastal environments, giving it access to a diverse range of food, which clearly did wonders for its size, as estimates over 10 meters, or 33 feet long, are very common for matured individuals. Only the Rampasuchus of the same family rivals it in title for the largest gavialid. And seeing this, it's pretty evident that Griposuchus didn't have many foes either, rather, just a lot of victims. Though I will say, none were probably as large as the prey Purosaurus was going for, since, opposite to the Purosaurus's broad skull, Griposuchus had evolved an extremely narrow and slender one.
Why do they have these narrow, like, bites?
Leading to a theorized diet heavy in large fish.
Fish.
But given its sheer size, it's quite realistic that the occasional mammal might have been on the menu too. And if this duo of titans didn't seem like enough, there was also a third, stupidly huge croc
One more?
that completed the Pebas trifecta, and its name, the Morasuchus. Like Purosaurus, it too was a type of caiman, yet these siblings couldn't have been more opposite, with this genus in some ways being closer to ducks, as it sported
Ducks? That's crazy.
a broad, flat, and elongated skull that is often described as being duck-like. Sounds funny, but I'd probably never say that to its face, considering that adults in this genus could reach 9.5 meters or 31 feet long, and weigh in excess of 4 tons. So basically 4 giraffes mashed together.
Crazy.
And because of the stature plus its odd face, there has been great interest in this mysterious creature's diet, with
They have like a pelican mouth? Because this kind of reminds me of a pelican.
3 main hypotheses having been proposed. The first is that it was a generalist eater that patiently waited for animals to drift into its waiting mouth, where it would then swallow them whole. The second option was then a twist. This croc was really a gentle giant who fed on floating plant material. Though to be honest, most are not putting their bets on this idea.
Yeah.
With majority support instead going to the last hypothesis, which is that used its large duck-like mouth to sift through the muddy floors of rivers and lakes
That makes sense.
in order to uproot and consume a mix of invertebrates, mollusks, crustaceans, and fish. And while it may not be as voracious as its other two massive relatives, swimming into one would still not have been good for your heart.
Yeah, for
This,
sure.
I guarantee. And just remember, while these three were the true giants of Pebas,
And like the river water is so murky, you can't really see stuff. Because here in Brazil, I have swum swimmed in the river quite a few times, and you really can't see like afar, you know, inside the river. Sometimes I can see when I'm on the beach, but it kind of depends on the season. But on the river, it's impossible for you to see afar, like inside the water, you know. You only see what's in front of you.
Pebas's water, there were still plenty of other
And it is really dark because of the vegetation. The leaves make the river like a brown color, kind of like a reddish color. I can't really describe it, but it's kind of like that. You guys have seen it already.
crocodilians to go around, with fossil formations revealing the presence of at least a dozen other genera that again demonstrated a wide range in size. And you would have found multiple kinds that rival the largest crocodilians of today, whilst there was also a handful of much smaller genera. There were in some cases dogs-sized or even
So
smaller.
cute.
And that might sound good, but what this really means is that every animal in Pebas had a croc designed to hunt them. But as Ian Malcolm so beautifully put it, life, finds a way. And coexisting creatures put up a good fight against these tyrants, using some of that good old gigantism right back at them. Which is why this area also became home to a lot of large fish, including Potamotrigon, that rivaled the heaviest freshwater stingrays on record.
The genus two exists today? I never heard of this. Like a giant stingray?
And multiple croakers and drums that were human-sized. Yet, the animal that would likely turn the most heads in these waters, which wasn't a croc, was actually a turtle. Though I frankly think calling it a kaiju makes a bit more sense, because it was
Look at the size of that shell. It's huge.
the biggest freshwater turtle of all time, and one of the biggest, period. The Stupendimus. And don't let this name confuse you, as it has nothing to do with being stupid, besides perhaps your expression when seeing one, but 100% to do with it being stupendous, which is what sums up this reptile, who even gave the likes of the Archelon a run for its money, as its carapace alone was in some cases 2.86 meters or 9.4 feet. And remember, this was the shell, not the entire body. So it comes as no surprise that it was also quite hefty, being over 1 ton. And it's possible that these
Oh, it was quite light for being that big.
extreme proportions were essentially forced upon the turtles by the threat the crocs posed. And the enormous shell would have certainly come in handy when traversing these waters.
So cute.
And we even have direct evidence of this, as multiple specimens from Pebas have been found with bite marks in their carapace, as well as actual embedded teeth that were crocodilian in nature. Now, I expect that not every turtle was this fortunate, but at least in these cases, it seems like the XXL shells did the trick, helping their would-be victims survive and fight another day.
Cool.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but seeing a mega-sized turtle would certainly check a few time-traveling boxes for me. But this is one flippered animal you definitely would want to observe only from a safe distance away, as while we generally think of turtles as being harmless, cute creatures.
I mean, there is even, like, I think it's the snap turtle, the one that bites. Oh, and that one is already so painful. Imagine this one.
For the most part, the Stupendimus was a feisty guy. It possessed a hunkering beak that was curved and hard, allowing it to snip and crunch various items, likely resulting in a durophagous omnivorous diet that was rather generalistic in nature. And given its size, fish, mollusks, smaller crocodilians, and snakes were all likely game. And the defiance to their crocodilian rulers among the turtles did not end at Stupendimus either, as another large-bodied genus lived alongside it, the Caninimus. It was a smaller genus than Stupendimus that was somewhat similar in size to leatherback sea turtles. So, not massive, but still definitely not pet-sized. And it would have been even
The tail was so long like that?
less optimal for house living considering its bad temper, since Caninimus was highly aggressive and carnivorous. This notion stems from its hooked jaw that was stout, robust, and had curves along it similar to what's seen in the alligator snapping turtle. And thus the belief is that this was just one big old snapping turtle. Albeit, opposed to the risk of losing a hand, you'd be at risk of losing your entire legs, arms, and maybe even head from a bite. And it likely fed on anything it found, except for perhaps giant crocodilians. But who knows? Perhaps it tried. And so, when even the turtles are unhinged, you know the place is messed up.
That's true. Oh my god.
But don't forget, you also have the usual nightmare suspects. In other words,
Sharks?
sharks. Now grant
Like he said it was. Do you guys call it Sweetwater too? I never heard of. Although I think there is sharks in the Amazon River, but it's not really the big ones. It's just small ones.
These cartilaginous fish seem to have been extremely rare in the Pebas overall, and limited to the regions closer to the coasts that were likely brackish and exposed to periodic marine incursions, which are known to certainly have happened. And so this was just one more thing to worry about. And this is why it's seriously impressive that aquatic mammals managed to show up here in any amount, despite their relatively cold-blooded onslaught, with the two main mammalian groups in the Pebas waters being sirenians and river dolphins. At least multiple species of each
I know about this one. It's the bottle.
Coexisted with the reptiles and fish, and like those groups, also ranged in size. For the sirenians, they could be quote-unquote fun-sized, all the way to the sizes seen in the extant manatees, while the dolphins, on the other hand, tended to swing larger, and actually got in on that good old gigantism from time to time, as it was here that the biggest river dolphin of all time lived, the Pebanista. Today, that title for the largest river dolphin goes to the Amazonian river dolphin, that coincidentally lived in a corresponding area, and whose adults measure up to 8.5 feet and weigh about the same size as a gorilla, which is respectable.
Yeah,
Yet,
it's big.
it has to beef up a bit more if it wants to catch up to the Pebanista, who is about 30 to 35% larger on average. And similar to the other inhabitants in the Pebas, the Pebanista also became a bit more menacing than its living relatives. And we know this thanks to the unique construction of its skull, which compared to extant river dolphins was unusually sturdy and sported relatively longer and thicker teeth. What's more is that its snout was oddly elongated, yet wouldn't have been flimsy or fragile, instead being sturdy and capable of enduring high stresses due to the robustness of its overall skull. And then on top of that,
oh, that's interesting.
the postcranial skeleton featured many attachment points for muscles. So in other words, we had a dolphin Chad on our hands. And paleontologists do agree that the Pebanista practiced a raptorial lifestyle that was supported by the cetacean's hallmark OP ability, echolocation, which would have proved wonders for Pebanista as the development, or rather reduction in their
Were they already intelligent back then? Because like dolphins, they have a really, they have a reputation of being an intelligent fish, a really intelligent one. I wonder if they were already back then.
eyes reflect that the Pebas was mainly composed of highly muddied waters, where visibility was very low, and thus things like echolocation would have been phenomenally useful. And it is this fact that really gives me the heebie-jeebies. That fact being that the Pebas was essentially a giant murky swamp. Imagine that for a second. You could be just minding your own business, paddling out on a little canoe, and peer over the side and see absolutely nada. Just a dark abyss. While unbeknownst to you, multiple predators over 1 ton could be lurking just an arm's reach beneath you.
I mean, what the eyes don't see, the heart doesn't feel.
Yeah, no thank you. Here's the problem though. Staying away from the water is not a foolproof plan to survive in the prehistoric Amazon, as the land was also home to its own nightmares as well. From formation sediment, it seems like the majority of vegetation and habitats in the system, plus its immediate surroundings, was a mix of rainforests, palm swamps, normal swamps, ferns, and open flooded areas where aquatic plants are abundant. And this might sound lush and picturesque, but don't be fooled. All this vegetation did was make it easier for terrestrial scaries to hide. And in Pebas, there were 2 families in particular that were essential to
It looks like the dodo bird.
keep an eye out for: the cebichids and forest racids. Both of these groups were like the biggest terrors in the water, i.e. reptiles, kind of. So again, so much for the age of mammals. But I guarantee you that you would not be mixing these two up. For the cebichids were a group of typically large, ferocious croc-like crocodilomorphs who hunted utilizing powerful skulls, jaws, and teeth, which were actually more similar to those of giant meat-eating theropods than to other crocodilians. Oh, and they also had long limbs, allowing them to run. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's scary! Like a crocodile with long legs. Oh, I can't even imagine that.
Run. And unlike what we've been programmed to believe about crocodilomorphs, these guys were completely terrestrial. So in other words, they probably ran fast at that. And then you had the forest racids, or the terror birds. So technically reptiles, in a sense, who were, as the nickname suggests, predatory birds, albeit flightless ones, but were a bit too oversized to be confused for a chicken, and lacked the same type of teeth as seen in cebichids, but still were able to kill plenty thanks to their exceedingly durable, sharp curved beaks, as well as their long legs that granted them immense speeds while chasing down prey. So imagine Roadrunner, but multiplies deadliness by 100. Now both the terror birds and cebichids were not new news in prehistoric South America, as well before the Pebas system they were around. Yet, the wetlands really brought out the worst in them, because it was in the Pebas that the largest of each of these families lurked. For the cebichids, this was the infamous Brinasuchus, an animal who needs little introduction. and the adults could reach 7.5 meters or 25 feet long. In other words, greater than the length seen in the longest modern crocodilians. And just to remind you again,
God.
these guys are running, not swimming.
Like, I know even nowadays, the crocodiles that exist nowadays, they can run to, like, gallop. Imagine these ones. Oh.
Which is only more impressive when you consider that they also weighed about 2 tons, thanks to their build and armor. And to make matters worse, there are even more extreme estimates, which suggest that 10 meters, or 33 feet, was also within the realm of possibility.
Oh my
which would be
God.
like stacking 3 rhinos standing back to back. Now I will say, subsequent
That's so scary. I mean, did humans existed at that time? I'm not really sure. I think they didn't.
studies have typically stated lower estimates. But in either case, the Barynosuchus remains the largest known subachid, as well as a very strong contender for the biggest land predator to have ever lived since the freaking dinosaurs. Talk about an achievement. And so given this, the Barynosuchus did obviously blow away the competing terror birds in the wetlands. Yet, the birds did muster a respectable fight, as recovered bones from the region showed what is among the largest terror bird ever. A for now unidentified species that would have stood at 2.5 meters or over 8 feet, making it not only taller than the likes of Shaq,
They're still undefined,
but also one of the tallest birds of all time. And given its vertical exceptionality, this bird would have been a hefty fellow too, weighing around the same as a lion. And for me, this would make me want to skip seeing this guy on a time trip vacation. But for others in Pebas, their size just made them more appetizing, despite the fact that they were also
A giant
terrestrial
chicken.
apex predators, as terror bird bones have been found riddled in bite marks, indicating that it became someone's KFC. And the culprit? Our old pals, the megacrocs. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to take our chances on land. And yet, they still are not good odds. For beyond the larger subachids and terror birds, you also had the smaller, more diverse members too, such as the Langstonia and multiple unidentified terror birds, plus some unwelcome faces that are still present in the Amazon, namely a variety of boa constrictors. So with all this said, this area is without a doubt exceedingly unhinged, even for a prehistoric environment. I mean, think about it. In one spot, you could find the largest river dolphin, turtles, caiman,
But the dolphin wasn't really carnivorous, was it? Or they eat everything?
gaviolid, and land predators since the dinosaurs, all in one spot. Most places would be considered crazy for just having one of these things,
True.
let alone all of them. And given this, it's seriously impressive that besides terrifying predators, herbivores existed too, and were unsurprisingly the most widespread animals in this part, represented by none other than us. Well, mammals. In the waters, our diversity wasn't exactly the most impressive, even making the extant mammals in the Amazon seem rather mundane and boring. For instance, today one of the odder creatures in the Amazon is the capybara, the biggest living rodent on Earth, which loves swimming, lives by the water,
It's so
and is actually
cute.
semi-aquatic. So pretty interesting. But back during the middle Miocene,
Yeah, they're really common to find. Like I wouldn't say every park, but most of the parks here in Brazil, like that I go to go on walks and all that, most of them have these capybaras.
these guys had not yet come along. But in their place were other rodents, including in Pebas, the Vtuber, a grass grazer who is a relative of modern-day guinea pigs. But that's where the similarity stops, as it could not be farther from them in size, being more similar in that department to polar bears,
Oh my
making it
God.
among the largest rodents of all time. Meanwhile, the Pebas system would have been home to an absurd amount of ground sloths too, a group of unfortunately now extinct sloths that were far more agile, active, and terrestrial than living ones, and who also tended to be more unusual in stature. In Pebas, their level of diversity was off the charts. We are aware of at least 10 different genera.
Oh, there are so many of them. There are some small too. They kind of remind me of our otter.
They called this place home, and would have offered the perfect mount lineup. For across the bunch, there are species akin in size to large dogs, pigs, deer, and even elephants, at least Asian elephants, as the ground sloth, Eurymachia, is believed to have weighed up to 4 tons. In addition, 1+ ton neo-ungulates would have been a common sight as well, plus animals that superficially resembled bisons and rhinos, but just lacked horns. Then moving on to some of the more funky-looking life, you also had a mix of glyptodonts, Litopterna, and of course, anteaters, who are actually deceitfully large, and hard to miss given their highly elongated tongues, strange eating manners, and highly modified skulls that honestly look like they're missing a part. And if you think you can't take any more new animals, then hold on to your horses, because I can't let you go
A llama?
without mentioning that primitive primates, bats, Astrapotheria, Metatherians, and Chiroptera were all out in this mega wetland, repping us mammals as well. So by now you should have gotten the memo that Lake Pebas was one heck of a place, and maybe a tad bit too much for nature to handle, as obviously many walks of life I just mentioned do not exist anymore. nor does obviously the mega wetland.
Yeah.
So what exactly happened? How does such an expansive environment disappear? Well, just like the Andes giveth, so do they taketh. And during this whole time, they kept rising up and up and up, eventually reaching a point where instead of flooding the area like a bowl, the bowl started leaking water out, and the area slowly started to drain, causing immense shifts in the environments that forced animals to move out or disappear. At some point, this uplift of land even ended up blocking what is now known as the Amazon River from flowing into the Pacific, eventually resulting in its flow to do a complete shift. So yes, at one point this iconic river
Oh, that's so interesting.
didn't even run the same way as it does now. And over enough time, the Pebas system fully emptied out, until the only remaining water became the Amazon and its tributaries, which have remained to this day. But of course, many of the amazing and terrifying animals that called the system home are no more. But perhaps for the best. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, the Amazon is already scary enough. We don't really need more animals there. But it was an interesting video. I never heard of this stuff that happened in the Amazon back then. It's crazy. They didn't teach this in school. Ah, but I like it.